Hey guys, so this is Jenna Jans with Fur to Feather, the creative mind behind A Family Funny Farm. So I am here for Tidbit Tuesday on a Wednesday because I film on Tuesday and I can never seem to get it, edited and put out by Tuesday night. It's always Wednesday. So Tidbit Tuesday on a Wednesday. Anyways, so we have 3 questions this week. I'm gonna do them while going to do my night chores. So hopefully we don't get too wet because it's raining. So the first question this week is, how long do you leave a chick in the incubator? Well, when I'm hatching my chicks, I'll generally leave my chicks in there for 24 or 36 hours, up to 48 hours. So 2 days. You can leave them in the incubator after they hatch. This gives them time to, totally fluff up and be nice and healthy by the time you move them into their brooder. Because the brooder is generally a little cooler than your incubator. So that gives them their 2 days to adjust to a temperature difference. And I find I lose a lot less chicks when I let them take their time. The other thing too is the fact that chicks can actually go without food or water right after they hatch for 3 days. They have a yolk sac that is attached to their belly and it absorbs over those 3 days. So if you actually witness nature, a mama hen will not get off her chicks immediately. She'll give them a couple of days underneath her and let them fluff up, dry off, get super comfortable before she takes them to the outside world. So how long can you leave your chicks in the incubator? So between 24 and 48 hours. The second question was, how do you hatch even the hardest eggs? I always have a problem hatching out my Orpingtons. Sometimes some breeds are really tricky. I know that Bantam Brahmas can be pretty tough, and they're also a little bit fragile chicks too. The Orpingtons, I haven't really worked with too many purebreds, but some things to consider. Definitely, when you're having a hard time hatching out a group of chicks, would be check out your genetics. Maybe you have some close genetics as in inbreeding, and then you're not getting anything actually forming properly in that egg. And if that's the case, then you're not going to have strong chicks that are able to actually pip and zip their egg. They just won't have the vigor if they are too inbred. Other thing to consider would be maybe your incubator isn't as good as it could be. There's a bunch of different kinds out there. Do your research and try to find the best rated one and then give it a shot. So sometimes it could be, maybe the temperature wasn't consistent. Check your fertility too. Make sure you candle your eggs and be sure that there's even chicks in there developing. Another thing to think about would be your humidity. So you can fluctuate with humidity and play around with it. I think generally the go-to is between 40 and 60% humidity, depending on what time of your hatch. I don't pay too much attention to that, I'm not gonna lie. I fill up that bucket, I let it go, and I have a big incubator and it keeps control of everything with a float, and it pays attention to it. I have successfully done a dry hatch, so I didn't add much water at all. The humidity sat around 10% or lower, and I had so many chicks hatch, and it worked really good. So maybe that's something to consider. Try a dry hatch where you're not adding a lot of humidity. And then if that's not working, try that medium humidity, maybe between, 40 to 60%. That doesn't work. Jack up the humidity a little bit, maybe between 60 and 70%, and see if that changes your results. If you still have poor results, another cool thing to do would be to let Mother Nature do her thing. Find yourself a broody hen. A broody hen is going to hatch those chicks. We try to mimic nature as humans in the best way we can with these incubators and different things like that, but Mama Hen knows better than us and generally does way better. So that would be another thing to consider. So if you're having trouble hatching your chicks or hatching your eggs, and you're not getting the results, maybe try a Mama Hen, check out your humidity, maybe try a different incubator, and check out your genetics. How closely related are your birds? Question number 3. Can you put any kind of chicks, all different ages, together without fighting? I will say no. There's going to be fighting, regardless of the ages of the birds too, because they will develop a pecking order. That's just what birds do. They figure out who's who, what are they about, and where do they sit. Who's going to go to the roost first? Who's going to go to the roost last? Who's going to drink first? Who's going to eat first? Who's going to eat last? And who's going to be picked on? So when it comes to the chicks, the different breeds of chicks are okay. So say you have your chickens, that's your species, and then you have your different breeds of chickens. I wouldn't be too concerned about combining them. Definitely watch the individual personalities. You're going to have some birds that are completely docile, pretty easygoing, happy-go-lucky birds. And then you're going to have birds that are aggressive and they don't care and they'll just pick on anything that is around them. It's a personality thing. They vary. When it comes to mixing species of chicks, though, I would hesitate a little bit on that. I do have I have some turkey chicks in with my chicken chicks, and they're fine. Pheasants, I wouldn't combine them necessarily because they'll be so much smaller. Age differences, let's say in a species of, so let's just say chickens, the age difference in chicks. So if you're going from like 1 week to 2 week, day old to 3 days old, those kinds of things, I would have no problem mixing, and I haven't had much problem at all mixing my day to 3 day old chicks with my week to week and a half old chicks. It's an okay enough distance where they're still under the kind of that same temperature and they can handle being in together. I also introduce large quantities at once, so I'm not taking this one little chick and introducing it to a whole new flock of birds where it can get singled out and picked on. There's multiples of them. Think of it like, a fish tank. You generally don't add one little schooling fish, you add multiple, because then they can figure out how to get away from everything else. Same with the chickens. So you have your older chicks in there. You want to add some that are a little bit younger. Add them in a group so that they don't get singled out and picked on their own. What is another thing to consider? Oh, if things are getting picked on and you have a heat lamp on them, use a red bulb. The red bulb kind of blinds them to blood. So if they do pick anyone and get them bleeding, then they can't focus on that spot because everything is just red. So you'll have less that go cannibal, and that does happen. You will, hopefully you never have to experience it, but you can experience cannibalism in your birds. So definitely a red light helps with that. And also overcrowding. Don't overcrowd your birds because then they definitely pick on each other. Always have a backup plan too. So if you're buying these new birds and you're like, oh, it would be easier for me to do chores if they were all in one pen, but you're unsure how that's going to go, have a backup plan. So go ahead, put them in all in one pen, but have a second one ready just in case. And pay attention to them too. You'll know if they're picking on each other. I'm just gathering eggs. Oops. So you'll know if they're like picking on each other if you're watching them, because you'll see if they're singling out one chick and decide to pick on them to death, because they will. That's the way they are sometimes with nature. Is anything else? So yeah, when you are, so can you put any kind of chicks, all different ages, together without fighting? I'm gonna say no. If you do, combine two groups of chicks, have a backup plan, use a red heat lamp to deter them from being able to pick and single out an animal. Mix more than one together. So if you're combining a group, don't just put one chick into that new group. Combine 4 or 5 into the new group so that they can't single one out. They're going to establish a pecking order, so there will be fighting, but make sure that you monitor it. I think that about wraps it up. Next week, I have 3 more questions already for next week, and they are: at what age can you determine a chick's sex? How can I tell my chicks are hens or roosters? How old are chicks approximately before they start laying? So I hope everyone has a lovely evening, morning, whatever time you're watching this, whether that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day. I can't pick a day either. So enjoy Tidbit Tuesday, and I'll see you next week.